Hello, dear listener. I wanted to put a disclaimer at the beginning of this episode, because the formatting of this episode is something new to us. In the first half of the episode, we do our normal talking about the topic in question, which in this circumstance is Destiny. But in the latter half of the episode, we run through a dungeon in the game. During that time, we flip-flop talking about what's going on screen and what's going on with the topic of the episode. There is also background sound effects and music to go along with what is going on screen. This is a new format to us, and we're not sure if it's going to work. It is very experimental, but we did have a lot of fun making it. But it still needs to be successful and pleasureful for you to listen to. So what I am asking is please send us an email giving any kind of feedback you can, whether or not it works or it doesn't, what works and what doesn't, so we can make adjustments going forward. Our next bonus episode is also planned in the same way, but I would love to hear back from you in order to make adjustments and plan ahead. Thank you, and enjoy the episode. Hello and welcome back to Door to Door Gaming. You are listening to our first quarterly bonus episode. These are going to be a very long format, very in-depth episode that comes out every 3 months or every quarter. And they're going to focus on a single topic that we choose, typically something that we are very knowledgeable about or something that we are willing to jump into over the course of 2 or 3 months and learn and experience as much as we can about. And this episode is Destiny, Bungie's very own MMO FPS. We're going to sit down for a couple of hours at least, and we're going to talk about, things that, what it means to us, what it means to the gaming community as a whole, what it is, the lore behind it, both in the game and what led up to it, and stuff like that. Without further ado, I would like to introduce my wonderful co-hosts, Cameron.
Hello.
And Dalton.
What is up?
And both of these gentlemen are much, much more invested and much more knowledgeable about the franchise as a whole than I am. I used to play. I stopped playing right around the Taken King in Destiny 1. And when Destiny 2 came out, I touched it for a month, maybe. Dalton started playing fairly recently, if I'm correct. Right, Dalton?
Yeah, I started playing right after, right before Lightfall released, like maybe a week, I played D1 for like the first month that it came out. And then I played D2 for a couple months in like 2019 with some college friends. And then after those couple months in 2019, I didn't touch the game again until 2 weeks before Lightfall released.
Okay.
So I want to say sometime around like January, February of this past year. So
at this point, it's been about a year, and in that time, you've been deep into it.
Yes.
And Cameron has been playing fairly consistently, as far as I remember, since Destiny 1
I've been
launched.
playing. Yeah, D1, man.
I have fairly recently gotten back into it fairly casually. These two wonderful gentlemen drug my ass kicking and screaming back into it.
You love it. Don't even try.
I do love it. I don't play it as much as I want to, because I think I explained to you last night, actually, Dalton, that my main hobby is collecting hobbies. So I always have too much shit going on. But every time I notice them playing, I do get in there. I'm like, you guys want me to join? Even if you're going to carry me? So yeah, get in here. So we're going to sit down and talk about what led up to Destiny first, in this segment that I have wonderfully titled Bungie and the Birth of Destiny. I think Cameron's going to be the main one that leads us through this. So, Cameron, tell me about
what happened before Destiny and why it's a thing?
So one of the main things that led up to Destiny was that Bungie at the time had just finished up their story of Halo before selling the franchise over to 343, which is still a large group of people that worked on Halo. So 343 is still Halo, and then Bungie is like made up of a few members and mostly new people. But Bungie basically needed a new concept for a game, and that kind of led into Destiny. Um, and being really fluent with Halo, when I first started playing Destiny, you can tell that it's a lot of shared ideas or like a common ground, and they kind of built up the story as they went, which isn't a bad thing. But when I see certain things in Destiny, it's like, oh, that's still Halo. And that's great because like I can connect these two awesome franchises together.
Right. So you're talking about them leaving Halo. You're a huge Halo fan as well, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's kind of what led you into Destiny in the first place, is you had to kind of see what the next thing Bungie was doing, since they've been doing so many good things for so many years prior.
Yes, yes. I absolutely love Halo. So when I saw Destiny, I can't remember what the first like trailer was, but I was like, oh, it's like Space Halo, and I was like, I gotta play this. So that got me really hyped.
Yeah, I remember that. One of the big things that they were touting at the time, and I remember going to GameStop and picking up my copy of Game Informer, and they were handing out Destiny posters at the time. And I remember what the poster looked like. It had the Traveler, a big Traveler on one side with a Guardian in front of it, and at the bottom it said "Prepare for Destiny, prepare for adventure." And the big thing that they were touting at the time was that adventure was going to span. They had plans to make this thing last more than 10 years, right? Which at the time, everybody was like, what do you mean they're going to make this one game last 10 years? How is that possible? Which, of course, in today's day and age, we have live service games, and it's nothing, that's nothing. But back then, the big thing was that they had this 10-year plan, this multiple year plan for this one game, right? And that's what drew me in, was the idea that they were somehow going to keep creating content for this one thing, which at the time we had World of Warcraft and MMOs were absolutely a thing. So the concept was there, but it had never been done with a first-person shooter before. And I think that's what kind of drew me in, was the idea that my favorite first-person shooter developer that is phenomenal with their storytelling is somehow going to make MMO level quality content. Well, not necessarily quality, but MMO spanning content for an FPS, right? That had never been done before.
And that was kind of the thing that threw me off, because coming from Halo, each game was its own story, and it like obviously branched off of the previous game, and it built upon this world that already existed. But building up an entire story off of something that has never existed, it's really hard to do. So, I mean, I'm glad I've been along for the entire journey.
Dalton, you
Yeah.
said that you played a little bit of Destiny 1, right? So when did you actually play? When did you play D1?
So I played D1. Oh, geez. I'm trying to think. I was like 13.
Right. I knew you'd be down almost in the single digits, man. Which,
Yeah, I was.
I mean,
like
I was
13 or
almost
14.
18, so we got two different perspectives going on. Do you remember what the hell you were thinking at the time?
It was so this was a game that both then and now, when I first started playing it, I was incredibly confused because the format and the structure of game was something I wasn't really familiar with. I had never really played any MMOs. I had never played much loot-based games because this was before I had even gotten into like Borderlands, which is one of my more favorite single-player franchises. it was like you could see some of the crossovers, but there were definitely some things that were very, very different. And then obviously, like, the one joke that reigns true with D1 even now is that it didn't really have a story that was like that you were able to scavenge up.
I think the closest thing they did with that, if I remember correctly, was the Taken King.
Yeah. Yeah. And they added Rise of Iron had like some lore things that had come in that I had gotten into like the tail end of, because I think that was yeah, I've had like weird on and offs with the game. So yeah, I started playing when it first came out in 2014. And then I played until House of Wolves released. And it was me and one of my other high school friends. We both played like pretty much nonstop when it first came out until we both reached the level cap of like 30. And then you had to, at the time, your gear had a light level, but in a very different way back then, where it would pull your overall level cap from 30 to like 32 or 34. I don't entirely remember. That's how it was originally designed. So like light level didn't necessarily exist the same way. The grind was very similar. You kind of just like had to grind the game out until you were able to find stuff that was able to bump you up in your overall power. But yeah, I played with a friend from high school. He played until he reached max level, that he reached the level cap, and then he tried to learn how to grind for light and got frustrated and then sold the game. He sold the game, never played it again.
See, that's my big thing is like I've never been, I think the only game I've ever like been a hardcore player at when it comes to like multiplayer is World of Warcraft. It's the only thing that I've ever like done made sure I've done raids on and like actually tried to get ground to get end game gear and stuff like that. I never did that with Destiny. For the couple of years that I did play, the 3 years that I did play, it was all super casual. I participated in a couple of raids. The most intense thing that I did was end game stuff in the Taken King, and like I do remember the Vaulted Glass pretty much like the back of my hand. I can understand, especially with how I think it's actually already been mentioned since we started recording, but since Bungie is so damn good at, you know, laying out UI and where to go and all their stuff so cleanly. That's a joke. I can completely understand that between that and the honestly mess that a lot of the kind of convoluted like gameplay features that were hard to figure out, or in the end kind of useless. I can understand why somebody would get frustrated and just quit. That's the majority of the reason that I stuck to being casual the entire time, almost the entire time that I played. It's because if I do remember if I couldn't figure it out almost immediately, I just ran a gun. Just run a gun.
But yeah, I friend quits playing. I play for maybe another couple weeks, month or so. House of Wolves comes out. I don't understand how their DLC is integrated into the game. I get confused. Other games are still releasing. Like, I think by the time I had stopped playing, the next Call of Duty had released, and that was like my go-to like ritual game to just like go and just like sit on and play all the time. Was definitely the Call of Duty up until probably the last couple. I was pretty into COD, and that was like my main squeeze of a time sink as far as gaming was concerned. But I stopped playing D1 pretty much entirely cold turkey. Couple years go by. I think I got a PS5, or I might have bought this before then, but I got a PS5. This was in like 2019. Was playing that here and there, and then D1 with all the DLC went on sale for like $30, and I was like, oh shit, I haven't played this in so long. It was right it was mainly advertised as like the Taken King bundle, and then I was like, I don't know what any of this shit means, so I'm just gonna get it and see if it's anything that's cool. And then I got on and then realized that so much shit had been added in the 4 years that it had been since I had played the game that I immediately got on, ran a strike, looked at missions, got confused on what missions I was supposed to do, and then I stopped again. Like within a couple days, I had stopped playing again. So I stopped D1. D2 comes out. Didn't play it the entire time that it had first released, and then randomly picked it up again from another friend. We played for a little while. I was on PC at the time. I had a gaming laptop that I had bought right before I went to school because I wanted something to play video games on that I could still do classwork while I was in class. So
Right.
I will admit that I played some D2 and some modded Minecraft while in class, and it was a nice time. I'd be sitting in there was like a health lecture that I had my freshman year that was like a night class, so we'd sit there for like 2.5 hours because night classes at the school that I went to only happen once a week. And so I would just sit there, and our professor would be talking, and she'd be telling us about like how sleep is so important and like all this other shit. And I was genuinely interested, but at the same time, I found it so difficult to just sit and like try to focus.
Mhm.
So then I would do pretty much what I'm doing right now, because to the listeners listening, I am actively playing Destiny as we're talking about all this. Just throwing that out there. Like I still do this kind of stuff to this day, but like as I'd be listening to her lecture, I would be just playing a game to try and like keep my like the low level focus of my brain occupied while using like more of like direct focus on what she was saying, and sort of, making sure that I was paying attention that way when tests and whatnot came around, yada yada. Typical college garbage. But I played at the start of college, played in class, but it was it was similar to you, John. It was very casual. I didn't even play, like, never did a single raid. I had never done like anything competitively on Crucible. Like I was very restricted in the activities that I would do. I would run campaign missions. I would do strikes. I was not familiar with the idea of like a reset. Like I didn't understand anything. I just got on the game, did the super casual playlist game modes that they offered. And then
This is absolutely the state that I'm currently in.
yeah, and it would just like and I would just like rotate through that stuff because I wasn't sure really where to go from there.
Right.
Then I only played for maybe like a month or two at that point. Stopped again. Didn't touch it again until this past year. So I took like a 2 to 3 year gap of just like no Destiny, not playing any of it.
Right.
And I think it was just because I was so preoccupied with college at the time that I wasn't really focused on trying to play much video games. Like I would play some stuff, but I was still I very much like wasn't trying to dedicate too much time to games. I would specifically play games that I could play extremely casually with zero lead up or zero setup, as far as like there was no mental setup for me to try and get into a game. Where playing Destiny, you kind of have to like be in a mindset to be able to play it.
Right.
And so, yeah, I started back up 2 to 3 years later, my senior year of college. And that is when my focus completely turned to Destiny. And I think the main reason that it did is because Call of Duty was going downhill for me. I wasn't enjoying it. My friends weren't playing it very much. It was super sweaty, super try hard. The game didn't feel fun. Like it just didn't feel interesting anymore. Nothing felt original.
Right.
Seasonal models pissed me off with Call of Duty because, and we can get into this later with Destiny, but I think that the way that you do a seasonal model can make or break like your motivation to want to play a game. And it was done very differently on Call of Duty, where you had to grind the shit out of everything for hours a day to try and max out the pass.
Right.
And a lot of people could do that. I couldn't, because the game wasn't even fun to me, so that made it even more difficult.
Right.
So I mostly stopped playing Call of Duty, started playing D2. I think I originally was on PlayStation at the time because I hadn't gotten a computer yet or built a computer. Yeah, so as my passion for Call of Duty had died and I had picked up Destiny, and I was playing on console at the time, I think it was on PlayStation Plus. They were like giving away Beyond Light for free, which is
Yeah.
for listeners who have not played Destiny, or specifically D2, Beyond Light was the DLC that introduced the first new subclass. So Stasis was introduced in this. And I had played a little bit of Destiny by that point. I had started getting into like getting my light level up, trying to reach like the power cap at the time, and then just starting to learn sort of the model of how you played the game. And then I did the Beyond Light campaign with some friends. And then they talked me into buying the rest of the DLC that was available because it was all on sale at the time because it was right before Lightfall was releasing. So they were doing like this massive sale, trying to get as many people to just buy into the franchise as a whole. And I was a sucker, and I fucking did it. I bought everything that they offered. 30th anniversary, the Forsaken Armory collection, because Forsaken was already scrapped by that point. Witch Queen. I think I had to rebuy Beyond Light when I switched over to PC. I bought Lightfall, and then later on, actually not. This was actually like a month ago. I bought the annual pass. That way, I could get the rest of the seasons at a discount because the annual pass was discounted recently. It was like I have fully committed financially to investing into this game and to playing it. Yeah, so I started that this most recent time that I have started into the game. I ended up getting on right before Lightfall during the Season of Defiance. Did the season, Lightfall dropped, and then I've just been playing pretty much every single day since.
Right.
I've done a couple raids. I've gotten into some of the endgame stuff, and as both of you know, even though I haven't tackled a lot of the endgame content, I have obsessed over a lot of it very, very heavily, and like. That's an issue that I've been running into with like build crafting because I love min-maxing all my shit, and I love build synergy, and I love being able to like match weapons to subclasses and like all this shit. And anyone that's listening to this is just going to be like, dear God, why is this where we're starting? He's saying too much jargon. It will hopefully make sense as we lay out a bit more of a surface. I am just expounding on my journey thus far. Expound.
Honestly, we've already been recording for over half an hour, so if they're still here, they're in for the long haul at this point, especially with the warning that was given at the beginning. Yeah. No, my story with Destiny is a little more subtle than yours, I guess, because I never really jumped hardcore into it. So I started Destiny before Destiny even came out. Super cliche phrase, of course, but Halo 3 had come out, and Bungie had openly been like, that's the end of Halo. Like, that's the end of the Master Chief story. The trilogy is complete. They came out with ODST, then they came out with Reach. They came out with ODST and they came out with Reach, but if I remember correctly, there was some weird things about Bungie leaving Microsoft at that point, or what have you. A little fuzzy on the details with that. But Halo was done. Bungie's style of first-person shooter was done at that point. So, and nothing ever really took center stage for me to replace that feeling. I got into Call of Duty, but I wasn't a huge Call of Duty player. It was mostly just like blind fun, I guess. Borderlands came out, and I'm really glad that you brought that up earlier, because there is a pretty distinct similarity between one of the core fundamentals of Destiny and one of the core fundamentals of Borderlands. Destiny isn't exactly a looter shooter, but it's in the same family as a looter shooter if you look at it the right way, to me at least.
Yeah, for sure.
So I was looking, constantly looking for something to fill that like Halo feeling void. So when, of course, Bungie started talking about their next big thing, I mentioned earlier that this big 10-year project, I kind of touched on this earlier. I was like, all right, yeah, no, I feel that. And I kept up on it up until launch, right? Up until launch, nothing still kind of filled that Halo void that I felt. And I was really big into World of Warcraft at the time. So MMOs were like my thing. I was either playing SWOTR, or I was playing WoW, or I was experimenting with the first Guild Wars, or I was looking at any other number of MMOs at the time. That was like my bread and butter. So when it was finally announced that Destiny was actually going to be an MMO FPS, it was kind of like, how the fuck are they going to do that? So when it came out, I jumped into it. And while I never really jumped into the endgame content in any long-term fashion, it stuck with me hard because it felt like Halo. You're a guardian, you're badass, and it's mostly you're a bullet sponge that it comes down to. Unless you're doing try hard content, it's gonna take more than a couple shots to kill you. It's not a Tom Clancy game by any means. So you get that feeling of running around and just being a super soldier badass. And of course, Bungie was still in the DNA, so all of the feeling of a Halo game was in Destiny. So it took hold of me and it stuck with me for a couple years. And I played through it. At the time, I was working, the employer that I was working at, it was a 40-hour-a-week job. I had a life. I was an adult. I had to do adulty crap, right? So it wasn't my Halo 3 days anymore. It wasn't my Mass Effect days anymore. I couldn't come home from school and then sit for 10 straight hours in front of a TV. And then on the weekends, sit for 48 straight hours in front of a TV. I had to do adult stuff, right? So that at that time, So at that time, that was Destiny released in 2014.
Yeah, 14. I'm pretty sure.
So I was still kind of getting my life together because I moved out when I was 21, right? And so I was still I was still in that grind mode of like get a career going, get a adult dynamic going on. For anybody that's done it, they know it's not something where you move out of your parents' house and then you take 6 months to figure out how life works and then you just kind of have a life. No, it's a constant grind. And Destiny for 2 or 3 years was that thing where I could come home from work and I would spend half an hour on it a day, an hour on it every other day. It's something that I never felt like I had to try hard to really get to anything, mostly because of how convoluted things were laid out. So I stopped caring, but we can get into that later. It genuinely felt like one of the few and far between games where, even though I never really got into a groove where I could understand how the flow was supposed to go with certain things, I could just jump in, hit a playlist like with Halo 3 and have a game going and not be missing out, right? When I play World of Warcraft or a bunch of other MMO style games, it's all about the lore to me. It's all about what the end game content is. If I don't know that stuff, I feel like I'm missing out, or it's kind of FOMO, to be honest with you. And Destiny is one of the few games that has all that stuff, but it didn't have that effect on me. It latched onto me for different reasons. So when The Taken King came out, as at the time I was playing on the 360, and The Taken King came out, and after Taken King, they dropped support for 7th gen consoles, and they moved support fully to 8th gen consoles, which was the Xbox One, PlayStation 4, what have you. And I didn't get either of those right away. I got the Xbox One about 3 or 4 months after they dropped support on D1 for 7th generation consoles. I got a PS4 about 2 years after that. But it was long enough for other things to catch my eye and for Destiny to fall by the wayside, which is why I never finished out the Destiny 2 storyline, the last expansion pack. I never picked up Destiny 2 and had it grab me like Destiny 1 did when it came out, because I can't remember what I was playing at the time, but I had a couple of other things that I was like really deep into at the time. But when Destiny 2 came out, I played it for about a month and I dropped it. In that month, I played it consistently, but it was only for like 10 or 15 minutes a couple times a week. It was enough to do like very basic shit. I mean, I found myself a lot of times doing what I'll do in MMOs when I'm genuinely bored, which is just like in World of Warcraft, it would be running around one of your faction's main cities. mindlessly, right? So I was just running around the tower, not doing anything. And it took me a while to figure out why, and it was because everything was at the time there was the issues with currency, there was issues with inventory, there was an issue with the vault, and the menus. Obviously, we can get into the menus later. The menus, the progression system, everything was. It just took me back immediately to when Destiny 1 launched. And everything was convoluted. Everything had no. I don't need my handheld in video games by any stretch, but also it's not 1996, and I don't want to jump into a game and have to break out a bunch of beakers and chemicals and mix things the right way to figure out what the fuck to do. Like, I don't need a breadcrumb trail, but at least tell me if I need to go east or west to do something the right way. You know what I mean? And I felt I was in this state where I just didn't want to take the time to figure a whole new fucking thing out when I already had other things going on, so I dropped it. And quite a few years went by. That was what year was that? That was 2000. Was that 2018 that Destiny 2 came out? Or was
I
that
believe
2000?
so, yeah.
Yeah. So that's been
Oh, it was 2017. Was
17.
Destiny
So
2.
that's been 7 years ago, right? That it, for all intents and purposes, hasn't crossed my mind a single time until you guys started working for the post office, and I was loading my truck one day. You're like, yeah, well, get on Run Vanguard. I was like, Vanguard, I know that word, and I had to like dig deep into my brain to remember what the fuck a Vanguard was. And I popped my head out from around the truck. So I was like, what are you guys talking about? Like, oh, we're going to play Destiny tonight. I was like, oh, you guys want me to join you? I can play. And you're like, yeah, let's play. And like a very slow crack addiction started at that point because I do love it. I am addicted to it. It is, and it never wasn't one of the funnest FPS games I've ever played. I just don't have the drive to like let it be a sweaty game to me, if that makes sense. I like it casual. I'm going to be honest with you. One of the only reasons I play is because I have you two to play with. I love the game. The story seems awesome. Every little bit, and that's convoluted too, but we can get into that. Every little bit, new piece that I learn, it's awesome. It's Bungie's storytelling. It's just not linear the way Bungie used to tell it, right? So every time I get in, it is one of the funnest experiences that you can have with a game, in my opinion. But I don't want to grind to do end game content. So like, if you guys weren't here and I loaded it up, I'd just be doing Vanguards and it'd put a big smile on my face. That's where I'm at with it. And that's okay. Cameron, what do you have anything to say about, like, cause you've been at it for a minute, man. So like,
Yeah.
you may not have a roller coaster like on and off like we do, but like you got a story with it. It means something to you.
Yeah, so like I said, I had seen one of the trailers for Destiny, and at this point in time I was still playing Halo Reach because like that was the last Halo game basically. So I was playing Halo Reach at the time, and then when Destiny came out, I was like, yeah, hey, I'll pick it up, I'll give it a shot. And I played Destiny 1 throughout the entirety of its lifespan. I played the first expansion with some of my friends, and around the time of like the second expansion, the story was like not convoluted, not dry, but it wasn't what they were expecting or what they were wanting. So they kind of fell off, and I was like, no, man, I still like this game. Like I'll keep playing it. And towards the end of the lifespan, with Rise of Iron and the Taken King, these were like really cool to me because it had to do with the Hive and Siva and all this other stuff that was like kind of pulling. It was like really pulling the story back together. And then you get into Destiny 2, and they like completely retold the story of the first game, more or less, condensed it, made it more understandable to someone who would just have picked up Destiny 2 without playing any of Destiny 1. Which was fine by me because it's like I get to relive Destiny 1 and Destiny 2. And at that point in time, my friends kind of came back and started playing Destiny 2. They got more into the groove of it. They're like, hey, this is what we were wanting. This is what we were expecting. It's getting much better. Things are going in the right direction. Because there for a while, Destiny 1 was kind of shaky. People didn't think it was going to live up to the expectations. They didn't think it was going to make it through like this 10-year goal that they had set up. But I stuck with it. I really enjoyed the game, and it's only gotten better. As for like my experience with the game, like I said, I've been playing since D1. Not super competitively. I've run a few raids in Destiny 1, which they made a comeback in Destiny 2, and I would absolutely love to run them in Destiny 2. The problem is getting a raid team together. It's hard to do that with only 3 people.
Right, right, yeah.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
especially when one of those 3 people you guys have to carry pretty regularly.
One of the best things that I love about Destiny 1, Destiny 2, and just any game that has cosmetics is being able to customize your guardian or your character, or however you want to look at it, to be what you want to be. I think that's one of the most important things about those games, is that like you make your character, you put yourself into this universe. Just the story of everything that's happened it's still kind of mind-blowing. And every once in a while I'll go back through and read some of the what were called grimoire cards back in Destiny 1. Now it's just kind of like general lore. They don't really have a specific title for it. But I would go back and I would just kind of read through some of the lore, and some of the stuff is really mind-boggling. That's kind of happening behind the scenes, like the story that they're building on. That's kind of out of focus, but still vastly important.
So you mentioned that you really like how essentially all the different armors and stuff like that you can customize your character with, shaders, stuff like that.
Yeah.
When it's funny
Yeah,
because when they introduced transmogrification in World of Warcraft, I felt the same thing, which it's pretty similar to what it is in most other games. Because Destiny has transmogs, correct?
They do, but it's kind of convoluted. They had to make it confusing. You need a special currency to transmog a single piece of armor. Yes, it's kind of annoying.
That's one thing I like about it. And wow, is you just give the transmog gold and they make your shit look.
But I think that still stems from Halo, because you could customize your Spartan in Halo, and then it only got better. You got from Halo 1, it was just like, hey, slap a color on it, you're done. Halo 2 was like, hey, you can play as a Spartan or an Elite, change your color. And then you get to Halo 3, that's like, hey, you can unlock armors and like mix and match and make your Spartan your own. And I was like, that's amazing.
Right, yeah, no, that was I always remember the Hayabusa armor in Halo 3 is
Yes.
every time somebody mentions armor customization. First off, any time anybody mentions the words armor customization, doesn't matter what the hell they're talking about, I go straight to Halo 3, and then my brain goes straight to the Hayabusa set with the katana across the back. It's that ingrained in my head. Yeah. You got anything else that you wanna talk about with that?
I look forward to the last expansion. I mean, like, I know
Yes,
that's like where the
absolutely.
story is going to like quote unquote end, and they're gonna like reboot it more or less. But
Right.
we'll see how
How they're touting it as it's not over, it's just the end of the first saga.
yes.
So yeah, we can get into that a bit later. So, all right.
Yeah, for sure.
With that, you guys want to take a short break before we get into the next section, or
Yeah.
all right?
Yeah, we can do that.
Go take a short break. We'll see everybody here in a little bit. Bye.
Bye.
And And we're back. Hello.
What is up? We are here.
Yeah, we're back from our short break that turned into days, but we don't need to talk about that. So in this half of the episode, we're going to probably do a lot of discussion on meta type stuff. First half was a lot of philosophical and emotional background of the game, what it meant to us and stuff like that. We're going to get into the content, the community, a lot of the more deeper technical stuff about the game, which I am not super up on what is currently going on because I play super casually with these guys from time to time, not every day like Dalton does since he streams it.
Hey.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, never mind. That was a plug. I thought you were jabbing at me.
I revoke your plug, Dalton. Do not go and watch Dalton's stream. Tuesdays, Wednesday, or what is it? Mondays through Fridays that they're not supposed to
Tuesday
go watch?
through Friday.
There you go. You can find that on the website, but yeah, I'm going to turn it over to Cameron and Dalton for a little bit because they know more about what needs to be talked about in this scenario. So take it away, boys.
1 second. I'm gonna tell you to pause it here for a minute, just so I can explain these mechanics. So,
No, you're good.
you remember the loot cave from Destiny 1, right?
Yes.
Okay, so this is where we are. That loot cave is like right over that hill. There is a giant crystal in there, and you need to feed it with fake exotic engrams that you will get from killing these hive up here. When you pick one up, you will get a debuff called Weight of Burdens or something similar.
Burden of Riches.
Yes, Burden of Riches. If you pick up another one, it will extend that timer. But if you're still holding all of them by the time that timer hits 0, they all explode and you die. So in order to cleanse yourself of the Burden of Riches, you need to stand next to the crystal that's in that cave. And it'll, like, absorb all of them out of you.
All right.
Okay.
We'll try it.
Honestly, we could probably just leave that in. I think explaining the mechanics could probably be part of the overall recording itself.
In that sense, by the way, spoilers, we are currently running me through a dungeon to get Galahorn. If Dalton would like to explain specifically what's going on and what we are doing, that would be a wonderful start for our viewers with ears.
Yeah.
That don't have eyes and can't see.
Yeah, so we are running Grasp of Avarice for anyone who has not ran this before. Cameron just explained the mechanics, but this is essentially the intro quest to be able to get the Galahorn rocket launcher, which, as those who have played D1 know, that it is goated, and it honestly has just been made better in D2 in a lot of ways. So right now we are just killing the hive in the cave, and we are depositing our burdens into the crystal. No, I mean, anyone who's listening to this isn't going to entirely know what that means. We are just executing the basic dungeon mechanics to be able to progress to the next section. Because there's going to be a lot of platforming, there's like, I think 3 boss encounters total. It's a whole thing, so.
Right. So, obviously, this content comes from D1 because Galahorn was originally a legendary weapon or an exotic weapon in D1. Tell us about some of the content from the older game that either made it into this game and is now what we call vaulted, or that just never made it into the game. If Cameron could touch on that, because he played a lot more of D1 than either of us have.
Yeah.
So,
and you've probably also experienced a lot more of D2's vaulted content too.
Yes, yeah. So there's actually like 18 or 20 exotic weapons from Destiny 1 that have never made it into Destiny 2. Like, they are just lost in time. Some of them arguably better than others. Looking at Land Beyond, that sniper rifle was terrible. It was a one-shot, and you had to reload. But
that's the Iron Sight one, right?
Yeah. Looks.
I loved that one. It was awesome.
Really?
It was like if you wanted to drink Mountain Dew and eat Doritos while doing your montages type shit.
Gosh.
Yeah.
But when it comes to Destiny 2, there are entire and to our viewers that aren't familiar with this game, there are like different destinations that you can go to, different planets to explore, and they all have like different things you can do on them. Destiny 2 has entire planets that have been vaulted, and you do not have access to them anymore. And a lot of this is content that you had to pay for at one point in time. So them closing off stuff that you had to pay for, probably not the best move, all in all. Now that being said, they replace those planets with newer ones, with newer expansions, again that you have to pay for. The newer areas, obviously, they have more to do as well. So I think it's all about a balancing act for them. But again, I don't think it was right to vault something that someone had to pay money for.
So I forget what I'm supposed to do here because I haven't done the actual quest for this in a while, but I definitely have burdens now, and I don't know where I'm supposed to deposit them.
I believe we just continue on this path.
Yeah, this might kill me then because I have 10 seconds until I respawn. Yep, I'm gonna need that tasty revive here in a couple seconds. Yep.
As soon as you hit the,
All right.
as soon as you hit the ground. There we go.
I got you.
Actually, I don't think we need those right at the very moment. I thought there was another crystal that we had to feed, but
there is. I don't remember what it is. It's quest specific. It's
okay.
specifically for. It's something for John. I just forget what it is.
I know where we're at now.
All right,
okay.
so John, before you do anything, the whole idea behind these next couple sections is there are traps. So if you go over here, if you want to just like interact with this door really quick, this one here, just so you can experience what I mean by that.
Yeah.
Nice.
So there are generally two choices. And on top of that, there are a lot of spots that have pressure plates. So if you open this door, you can see that there's a pressure plate on the ground.
Okay, yeah.
If you miss it, then you're great. If you don't miss it, then you will get spiked.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so a lot of these platforming sections are like simple but annoying puzzles. When you jump up here, these platforms are going to collapse, and then there's going to be a lever on the other side that you don't want to interact with. So you don't
Gotcha.
interact with this. You wait for the platforms to go back up, and then there's actually a hole under the doors that has another.
God fucking damn it. I overshot.
That's fine. But I went ahead and opened the next spot.
Yeah,
So
fair enough.
now we're going up.
Dalton, did you want to feed in anything on what I was talking about with vaulted content? Like, I know you only know Destiny 2 stuff, more or less.
Yeah, I mean, I can just jump straight into the fact that I started this game during Lightfall. There's only one spot here that works, John. So you're just coming over to where we are. Because any other of the areas have pressure plates that'll kill you. But me starting with Lightfall, I missed the original story of D2. I missed Forsaken, which has been acclaimed as one of the oh god, has been, for those not watching, John is fully failing the platforming section of the very first part. But yeah, I missed Forsaken being like a pretty high praised DLC. I have not experienced a large portion of weapons in all regards. I missed quite a lot, essentially, and I come at it from a point of like,
Don't step
from the
where that
perspective
arrow's at.
of, I come from the perspective of, jeez, how did you both die? What?
John stepped
Me?
on the thing I told him not to, and it spiked me as well.
I didn't step on it. I landed.
This is a darkness zone, by the way. So if you're gonna
Alright, fair
die,
enough.
don't kill everyone else, because it will reset us.
Just let me lag behind a little bit. So
Yeah. Well, this
don't
next
wait for me
section's-
too close.
This next section is kind of confusing, so I kind of do want to wait. Plus, it'll give me the chance to talk about the vaulted stuff. But
Right.
yeah, I didn't get the chance to experience a lot of what D2 had to offer vanilla-wise.
Mhm.
And so I understand like sunsetting content, or not content, just like sunsetting weapons, but fully removing and like making content that was paid for obsolete makes me kind of sad, because like I paid for the Forsaken Vault, that way I could at least get a chance to use some of the weapons, which worked out in my favor because I got to use like some pretty good weapons when I first started playing this game. And but as far as content, like the D2 original story like isn't a thing anymore. The starting mission is just the same mission from D1, which is kind of lame, and it feels really uninspired when you're first trying to get into the game. That's why the first time I tried playing D2, I wasn't super into it, but it's just like, I don't know. It's just interesting knowing that like there was a whole different thing that I could have experienced had I gotten into it early enough, but I unfortunately didn't.
Right. That's one of the big reasons why I picked it up and put it down so fast is when D2 came out, when D2 came out, I had been done playing D1 by a year or so, maybe. And I remember being excited seeing it on the homepage for the Xbox. I was like, yeah, to download it. Immediately, you're thrust into what is essentially a rework of the opening of Destiny 1 with very little explanation and very little lead into what's actually happening in Destiny 2. I played it for a couple of hours and put it down, and then didn't touch it until, well, a couple months ago. So it's been years. We are running, since we're running for an exotic right now, in that vaulted content, are there exotics that have been locked behind that vaulted content?
Kind of. I don't think there's any that are like outright locked, but no. So yeah, a lot of the weapons in that kiosk weren't vaulted, but the missions. So like with this dungeon, once you get done with the dungeon, you or the quest to do the dungeon gives you the opportunity to get Galahorn.
Right.
A lot of the exotics that are in that kiosk originally had exotic missions tied to them, like the weekly exotic rotators that we've been pulling you through over the past couple weeks, where you've had a chance to do, I think, each of those at least once to get Dead Man's Tale, Dead Messenger, and I forget what the other one is. I don't remember. It doesn't matter. They originally, a lot of those exotics were behind those missions, those exotic missions, but instead, now you just have to get the exotic cipher and go that route.
I actually have I had a pretty big fascination with exotics when I played D1, just because it's kind of like the collectathon idea of it, right? Because it's you can almost view it as like a Pokemon thing where they're all different and you want all of them. So
yeah,
give me your take, since you and Cameron both have a lot more experience specifically in D2 than I do. What are some of your favorite exotics, and what are some of your least favorite exotics off the top of your head? Or like what makes them good or bad?
Are we sticking with specific weapons or armor as well?
I'd like to hear about weapons personally.
Okay.
That's where I find the most diversity, because armor's cool, armor's awesome, but when you're just playing the game, unless you're in a menu looking at your character, it's stats running in the background. The weapon is in front of you at all times, and you can see what it's doing. So I'd like to hear about weapons first. We can do armor, absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Wait, so I have a pretty good one if I could go first.
Yeah.
So it has nothing to do with the weapon being good or bad. It has to do everything with the like me getting it. So shout out to my friend JD. He ran a lot of these missions with me when I was first getting into Destiny, because he was super into it at one point. He bought Lightfall. Me, him, and a couple other friends had kind of traded off having like parties of 3 to be able to run a lot of this stuff. And then he hadn't played a lot of the other campaigns, and I obviously was new coming into Lightfall, so I hadn't experienced any of the previous campaigns. We bought the Witch Queen together because he and I both really wanted to play it, because it was what was known as one of the better options. And once you complete the Witch Queen campaign, spoilers here for anyone who doesn't want to listen. there is an exotic quest that you get after the fact that's really tedious to get, but it's really funny, and it's called Parasite. Now, this weapon isn't crazy good in any regard. I think some people use it for Gambit, but other than that, it's not like a super. It's not very widely used, but it's called Parasite, and it's probably one of my. It's probably one of my favorite weapons based on the quest line that you could get it from. Because part of the Witch Queen is Savathun has like this worm that you have to like use. Well, eventually you turn this all-seeing worm into the gun Parasite through like this whole like sequence of quests and whatnot, similar to what we're doing with Galahorn. But he and I did this quest because we were like, this quest is so tedious and stupid. This weapon has to be good. We did the whole quest. We got the weapon. And then we looked up like use cases for it. And there were almost none, because it turns out a weird heavy power weapon grenade launcher that shoots giant slug mucus ball sack things isn't that good. And so yeah, that's my main one that stands out. It's like it was one of my favorite ones to hunt for. If we're talking like solely like just something we liked that we like to use, or like that I specifically like to use often, it's probably between No Time to Explain, because I use that in PvP a lot, or Leviathan's Breath, because it's a great DPS option for power weapons, or Quicksilver Storm, because when Lightfall came out and I pre-ordered Lightfall, and using Quicksilver Storm, it was probably one of the best exotic weapons for like all-purpose content. What about you guys, or I guess you, Cameron? What do you think weapon-wise? What stands out in your brain?
You guys, man, I'm still rocking Monte Carlo. So.
Oh yeah.
Well, okay.
No, that's a lie. I'm currently using Revision Zero, and I'm in love with it.
That was the other weapon I was thinking of.
When it comes to Destiny 2, I've got two weapons that I absolutely love using. One of which has
one of them.
Yes, one of them you should already know. It is in like every single one of my hunter builds.
Yep.
The other one has a funny story tied to it, and I'll get into that when I get to it. But the first weapon is it is a sidearm, is a kinetic sidearm, meaning it has no damage modifier tied to it, such as like solar or stasis or void or what have you. It's called Rat King, and the reason I like it so much is because it has perfect synergy with my hunter build. Anytime I get a kill, if I reload it right after that kill, it makes me invisible for a short period of time. And it, like I said, it synergizes with my build because I can dodge to go invisible. I can throw down smoke grenades to go invisible. I can do finisher kills to go invisible. I'm invisible like 80% of the time. Really fun to play as a stealthy character in a game that is mostly run into a room guns blazing.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, it's I don't know. It's you don't really see that build. Like Titans don't really have that accessibility. Warlocks don't have that accessibility. So it's just kind of interesting to have a character that's stealthy.
That's fair.
And I really appreciate that build style, because I'm trying to take advantage of stealth, because you guys are kind of in the middle of dragging me face first through the mud, through stuff that is like hundreds of light levels above what I should be doing. So stealth and maneuverability is by far my biggest friend right now.
And then the second gun that I was going to mention is one that you had to get through. I believe it was it the Last Wish raid, if I remember correctly. It was 1,000 voices.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I ran that raid a few times with some friends, and they were like hyping me up about this gun, and I was like, we'll see what it is when I actually get it and see if I like it. We ran through it, maybe 4 or 5 times, and I didn't get any luck with that gun. Everyone else was getting it like one by one, and we found a random group of people that hadn't done that raid, and we all collectively ran it together, and literally everyone but me and like one other guy got it. And I was standing around for a second, and I walked over to another chest, because you come out into this room that's full of chests, and you can open so many of them. I can't remember if it's all of them or like 5 out of like the 15 or whatever. But I walked over to another chest, and I was like, oh, you can open more than one. And I opened it. I opened another one, and it was like my second chest that I opened. I ended up getting it. So everyone but one guy in that entire group got 1,000 voices, and it's a relatively rare draw.
Damn.
And yeah, that dude
Yeah.
rage quit so hard. I've never seen someone instantly just disappear like that.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So John, this next section is another sort of just like
Mhm.
platforming type of area. Can you let me through the door? Thanks. But we're essentially just going around to all of these like dock door platforms and opening them all up, which it's the same idea as opening those previous doors. Well, it's the same until you get to the very last part, because the last part requires you to utilize like the other main mechanic in this that isn't the depositing the fake engrams, which I'll explain it to you here in a minute. You won't have to do it though. I'll rotate. I'll be what I'm going to dub the role of the rocket runner. I'll just call it the rocket runner.
Oh, with the scourge.
But I'll explain it to you so you can see sort of how it works.
If we're tying in Destiny 1 exotics, there were, I'm trying to think of the other one. There's 3 of them that I absolutely enjoyed using. One of which was called Icebreaker, which was a sniper with infinite ammo, more or less. You had like 5 shots, then you had to wait for it to recharge the ammo. Like it ran on a battery, basically. That never made it to Destiny 2. That was a Destiny 1 exclusive only. There was another sniper rifle called Patience and Time, and again, only in Destiny 1. But again, I had a somewhat similar build in Destiny 1. This sniper rifle allowed you to aim down sights for like a brief time, and if you did, it would make you invisible for like 10 seconds. So if my teammates were downed and I needed to go revive them, I just pull out my sniper, aim down sights, go invis, run over and get them up. Very nice. I'm trying to...
Thanks. You've kind of always been an invis hunter then.
Oh yeah. Ever since I got the ability to do that in Destiny 1, that's kind of what has kept me as a hunter, more or less.
Hell yeah. So John, if you want to come over here really quick, I can explain this sort of section for you.
Cameron, do you remember the exotic Pocket Infinity?
Yeah, the fusion rifle? Yeah.
Yes. I ran that for the longest fucking time in D1, which is wild because I've told you guys multiple times I absolutely can't stand fusion rifles. The only reason I liked it the way I did, and I ran it for as long as I did, was its ability to just empty the entire fucking magazine in one go. Because that's my biggest gripe with fusion rifles in Destiny. So I feel like the charge up is too long for how few shots you get, because my aim is just dog shit in games like this, to be fair.
So we killed that guy to get his cannon. And then when you see that generator looking thing over there.
Yeah.
So you shoot it into it, and then you don't let go of the trigger. Because when you hold it, you'll see it'll charge up. So you see how it's still sitting there?
Yeah.
Still charging.
I got you.
and then once it hits its third one, you can let go, and it'll open the door. So that is a mechanic that is going to persist through the rest of this entire thing.
Now, before we go too far, hold up, because there is a booby trap that will kill us all.
Damn it, why did you tell him? I wanted to let him run up.
Well, I mean, you can run up there and experience it.
That's not the sketchiest hallway I've ever. God damn it! I lived. All right, cool.
Okay, well. Yeah, Indiana Jones booby trap, a giant steel drum comes rolling down a flight of stairs at you. But back to what I was saying. My third favorite exotic weapon in Destiny 1 was called Xylo Supercell. Again, it was only a weapon tied to Destiny 1. But it was basically a glorified AK-47 that if you got kills with it would chain lightning to nearby enemies, and it would kill them as well.
No! God damn it. For anybody wondering about the grunting, the constant cursing coming out of my mouth, I have a very good tendency at falling to my death in these games. I arguably fall more and die more than I do to bullet wounds.
I know you said you wanted to mainly stick to exotic weapons, but I would like to mention some exotic pieces of armor. I'm sure Dalton.
Oh, go for it. Absolutely.
A few good picks too. So Destiny 2, there's an exotic chest piece called the Omnioculus, and again, it's a hunter exotic, but it really benefits.
That's the one you were wearing not too long ago that freaks me the fuck out.
I'm still wearing. I'm still wearing it. Yeah.
Are you?
Yeah, I have a different different design,
different shader on.
Yeah. But it also benefits my invis build as well. I get a second smoke bomb, which is what I can throw down to go invisible. But if I hit an ally with that smoke bomb, it can make them invisible as well. And it kind of recharges the cooldown on my smoke bomb as well. So if I can make 3 people invisible, that means me and 2 teammates invisible, I instantly get that charge back. So I don't have to wait for a cooldown.
So we've approached the first boss now that we've done all the platforming and things, and you've been introduced to the Scorch Cannon generator door method thing. So this is, I forget his name. It's Golgoroth, but not, because he's not as angry and you can shoot him wherever you want. But you can see that there's a crystal down at the bottom. Please don't shoot anything though, because it will start the encounter, and I want to be able to explain this first.
I'm glad you said something.
The crystal down up against the cliff here is the same type of crystal that we had before. That's how you're
in the first area. Gotcha.
Yeah, so up in the back balcony, you can even see the Scorch Cannon right now sitting there because they ended up killing the dude. There are generator rooms on either side, the left or right. You'll know which one is open because the generator itself will have like the same opening in the hole, whereas if it's closed, it'll just have a wall over that circle where you would normally fire into. So the idea is kill the ads on the outside, open the door, kill the dudes in the room, pick up their engrams, deposit them in the crystal, rinse and repeat until the boss's shield goes down. The boss will be invincible this entire time. I want to say you have to have like 30 or 45 deposit, or it might be 40. Between 30 and 45 deposits to be able to get his shields down. It'll make a sound, you'll know when it's happening. But
Gotcha.
Once we get his shields down, we'll do that. Do damage. We'll meet behind the crystal for damage because you can actually hide behind the crystal. And then we just rinse and repeat that. We'll just go to the left room, then the right room, then the left room, then the right room, and we'll just keep depositing until we get him down. So
all right.
It's pretty simple once you get it going. I'll do the rocket section. Y'all can just clear the ads, and then we can focus on setting up his damage phases. I'm running Galahorn. John, you should still have that auto-loading chain reaction Code Duello rocket launcher.
Yes, sir. It's equipped. Yep.
Okay, yeah, so that should work fine because you'll have Wolfpack rounds from me, and then Cameron, you're running Apex, right?
Yes.
All right, yeah, so we'll just use rockets. Just Just like a regular sort of damage phase. Just shoot off your rocket, get a couple energy shots in there, a couple primary shots, shoot off your rocket, rinse and repeat until his timer expires. There's not going to be like a timer in the bottom left with like the buffs or debuffs. It's just going to be like you'll hear a noise and a visual prompt will show up in the bottom left that says like your foe is weakened. Essentially, it doesn't actually say that, but it'll be like your foe is weakened, and then it's like, and then after that it'll be like your foe is invincible once the phase ends. But you'll also see like the immunity shield bar come up on the boss health bar. So
all right,
get going. Sorry, Cameron, what were you saying about? Were you talking about Omnioculus, or did you end up talking about a different armor?
No, that was the end of that. But I was gonna go back to Destiny 1. There was a hunter exotic called the Bones of EAO, and when I got them, that was the only exotic I used in Destiny 1. And it's kind of sad to say, because the only thing that exotic did was it gave you an extra jump. That's literally all it did. So that being said, there were exotics that did much more, and I chose to always use that because it was so difficult to get around as a hunter in Destiny 1. But with that extra jump came some unexpected exploits with certain raids in Destiny 1, where you could kind of jump outside of the boundaries and skip certain areas, which made the raids a little easier to manage.
Also, if you pick up any burdens, make sure that you're depositing them. Otherwise, you will die.
Did you have any specific exotics that you liked?
Oh, armor-wise?
Yeah.
Well, I'm a Titan main, so I love my Syntheseps, and more recently with the meta shift with Solar and Strand being sort of the main go-tos, I have used Syntheseps on my Strand build, and I've used Pyrogale Gauntlets from the Lightfall Lost Sector loot on my Solar build. So Bonk Titan is no more because it got nerfed out the ass, and I was very sad about it when it happened because I loved Bonk Titan. But
and that is to say, the three people in this game.
All right. Damage phase.
The three people in this game right now are representative, I feel, of the three varying levels of sweatiness when it comes to Destiny 2. I'm super casual. Cameron, I feel, is somewhere in the middle, and Dalton is an extremely numbers-heavy person when it comes to games like this.
Which is not a bad thing, but
no, not at all.
Well, when I first started playing Destiny, I wasn't really super into like min-maxing my character. Like, I didn't really care. Like, if I had a build that worked, that's just kind of what I rolled with. But ever since I started playing Destiny 2 with Dalton, like, my goal, which I actually hit, was to get triple 100 stats for my hunter, and I've done that.
You've done that a couple times, haven't you?
Yeah. The first time was just kind of like I mismatched some armor with decent stats, but now I actually have it like exactly how I want it. So
right, with you guys having, with Dalton especially being very numbers heavy, and Cameron, you having played for the length of time that you have dungeons and raids. I know neither of you have a whole lot of experience on raids, but you've ran more than I have. What about that in reference to the same kind of opinions that we posed with the exotics?
As far as like favorites?
Yeah, favorites. Ones that you just flat out don't like. Feel free to include like strikes and stuff and like that in that too.
I don't know if I really see the issue with my opinions is I have not experienced a lot of like the later content that
what like one would typically consider end game content.
Yeah, like I haven't done a lot of like GMs, and by a lot I mean I've never even done one. Haven't done most of the raids. I've done a good chunk of the dungeons, but I think there's still a couple that I don't have under my belt. But as far as a favorite dungeon, I'm trying to think.
So dungeons are new to Destiny 2. That wasn't a thing in Destiny 1.
Right.
Which, for anyone who's not super familiar with Destiny 2, or Destiny 1 for that matter, dungeons are like mini raids. Like, they have raid mechanics, but they're much simpler to do, and you don't need an entire fire team to do them. You can do it with up to 3 people. You can do them by yourself, if you so deem it necessary. My favorite dungeon is the Watcher's Spire, I believe is what it's called, and it's an interesting dungeon. Mechanics aren't too terribly hard to understand, but what makes it so good to me is the armor that drops from it is very cool in my opinion. I'll brush on that here in a second. But the very first encounter, you land on Mars, and you're walking up this pathway that's just kind of like it shit,
All right,
I might die
damage.
before I get up there. Okay, there we go. You walk into this encounter after walking up this pathway, and you're not entirely for sure what you're supposed to be doing, but you get to this building complex, and
Let's go.
Let's go. First boss down.
it's very clearly an ambush. And you walk in, and you see this one lone enemy step out in front of you, and then you hear like your stereotypical like spaghetti western music, like, and then you see a lone tumbleweed like roll past you. So if you haven't guessed it by now, this dungeon is like thematically themed to be like a western, and the armor that you get is cowboy armor.
That's awesome.
Yeah, the armor that drops from that is pretty cool looking. I know a lot of people run it pretty, like the helmet specifically. They'll run that pretty regularly, which is always fun to look at.
It's kind of sad because for the hunter, the cowboy hat is part of your cloak, so you can have any helmet that you want on. But for the warlock and titan, it is tied to your helmet, so you have to have that helmet on.
You making your way down to us, John?
Yeah, I'm getting through the maze. I'm good. I was in the menu changing. I got a new cloak, so I was putting it on.
If you want, can you just hit this terminal?
Yep. Hell yeah. I'm so gullible.
Okay. That out of the way should actually explain the mechanics of this, because this is kind of a tight crunch to the end.
And I will do that right after this break from our sponsor.
Who's our sponsor? It's Mudwater, right?
It's Mudwater.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sponsored to you by Mudwater. Water that's not clear because it's meant to look like mud. Mudwater, where minerals can be your
Actually, I'm
sustenance.
pretty sure there's a brand of coffee called Mudwater.
That sounded so.
I'm pretty
There
sure.
is.
No, Mudwater's a real thing.
We are not sponsored. We're.
It's a real company. It's a real company. MUDWTR. Look it
I'm
up.
gonna get a phone call. I'm gonna get a phone. I'm gonna get an email. I'm gonna get a really angry email.
Can we keep that fake ad read in there as long as we disclaim that it's fake?
It's Mudwater with an A.
Mudwater. It's Mad Water.
It's Matt. You put the A in the wrong spot.
It's coffee, but it's not coffee.
All right.
Well, we're gonna take a break. We'll see you in a minute. Bye.
Yes. All right, we are back. Cameron is telling me to wait, but I'm not going to wait because I think it's funnier this way. So we have taken 2 days to try and figure out this fucking dungeon and to be able to go through the process of recording this. This is day 2, and we are past the first boss encounter of the ogre. I still forget his name because all of their names are confusing and weird. So we are on what I would call, this would actually be a good chance for me to go ahead and explain the mechanics of this next encounter to kind of kill a little bit of time here. We are in the Sparrow Racing Bomb Defusal section. So, John, what this entails is 2 terminals on the left and right side. You already found yesterday that the right one kills you. So when you open the left one, the double doors ahead of us will oh, and he's dead again. Great. But the double doors will swing open, And ideally, what you'd want to do is have the other two people already on their sparrows against the door. That way they can just boost jump straight out. So there are a bunch. The idea is you're riding through this like tunnel, or not, it's not a tunnel. It's just like a long lane with obstacles and spots that you have to go through. And there are little mines scattered throughout the area that you have to move into, and there'll be like almost like the same HUD indicator on like Control, like the Crucible game mode, where you capture the flag, but instead of capturing the flag, you're defusing a bomb, and you just sit in there with your sparrow, and it diffuses, and then you go. Right. So, what I'm going to be doing while you guys hopefully are going straight for the bomb defusal, I am going to be picking up the extra little objectives that will extend our defusal time. That way we hopefully can just do this once and then be done. After this, it's a bunch of platforming, and then we hit the last boss encounter. So it's sparrow running, platforming, that it's really simple once you know what you're doing, and then the final boss.
All right.
Which the final boss will just sandwich all of the different mechanics together. So, John, if you want to go to that left terminal and go ahead and hit that terminal.
All right. If you guys want to, wow, that was.
I don't know what happened to my sparrow.
Beautiful. So since we covered a lot of the content with dungeons and vaulted stuff, if you guys want to give like your perspectives on your interactions with the community as a whole, like for example, how they react to some of the things Bungie does or doesn't do when they should, and stuff like that, that'd be a pretty cool insight for people that may not know much about that.
I know that Bungie typically does like charity events, and usually they have something where if you donate money, you can get like a certain in-game cosmetic, usually a ghost shell or an emblem of some sort that kind of shows that you supported whatever cause. I'm not too familiar with the ones that they have done necessarily, but I've seen some of the cosmetics that you get, and they do a pretty decent job of, like, hey, this is something important. Like it sticks out. It's not like a generic emblem or like a generic ghost shell.
It's not a reskin or a recolor or anything like that.
No, yeah, it's something special. But when it comes to the community as a whole, genuinely, I think that my experiences are pretty positive. I've had random encounters with people doing raids back when you had to use looking for group or LFG if you know that. And some people are a little bit more stingy about like, hey, you at least have to know the raid mechanics. You at least have to have had one run through the raid just so you know what you're doing. But not everyone's like that. So.
Yeah, I recently actually found a pretty sick community of a live streamer where his whole stream revolves exclusively around just walking newbies through raids and teaching raids and stuff. And they have like a whole group, like they even have like they have a Discord that has roles attached to it, and then those roles all have like actual jobs and responsibilities. Essentially, he has like an application process that you can apply for if you want to be one of the people that walks people through stuff. It's really, really cool.
Also, to touch back on the LFG, it used to be that wasn't something that was available. Like it wasn't like an in-game thing. Like you had to go onto a website, fill out like a form, like, hey, this is the dungeon I'm doing. This is how many people I have. I need this many more people. You could fill out specific things like you need to have run the dungeon. You need to have a mic, stuff like that. And it was kind of a process to find a group of people to do stuff with. And she finally took it upon themselves to be like, hey, maybe we should have this a little simpler and have an in-game model of this type of thing. That way, people don't have to take like X, Y, and Z steps to find a group to run a dungeon or a raid.
Yeah, their more recent implementation of Fireteam Finder is definitely, I feel like a huge step in the right direction.
So Bungie seems to have a somewhat decent reputation with when the community has an issue, with something or is having trouble getting something done along the lines of like a Fireteam Finder, they'll eventually implement a fix for it, right? Or are they better?
Yeah, it I don't know. It normally takes them a little while to like get to that point, but when they do get to that point, they genuinely do a pretty good job of fixing the situation.
Right. It doesn't seem like it's something that when they finally do get around to finding a fix for X thing, it's not a half-assed fix.
Yeah, no, like it normally solves the problem. Because I know that, what was it? Not too long ago, now I lost my train of thought. Hold on. They were having what was it they were having an issue with, Dalton? Like it was oh my gosh, it was something like pretty big.
I mean, they were having
Can't
pretty
remember what it
serious
was.
server issues for a while.
No, this was more along the lines of the community itself, and I can't think of what it was.
Trials cheaters?
Yes, yeah. And what was it that they were doing? There was something specific that was going on that was causing problems.
Oh, there is a physical piece of hardware that you can use when using controller, when using mouse and keyboard that makes either your console or your computer recognize your mouse and keyboard as a controller, so you get all of the benefits of aim assist that controller players get, but while using the fluid motion and movement of mouse and keyboard. So you essentially just don't have to fucking aim. And so people started using that, and with like Unreal aim assist and an infinite amount of like of like aim capability with a mouse, it kind of just made it so everybody had just like super aimbot. Step in the tunnel, step in the tunnel, step in the tunnel.
So how is the community as a whole when it comes to like helpfulness or banding together to tackle problems and shit like that?
It's a mixed bag. There are a lot of people that are really open to like helping people out and whatnot, and like giving or like keeping like a positive environment. But there are also like some people that are just kind of toxic, just like any community, you know.
Right. Yeah.
But okay, so what we're doing here is there are a bunch of these little platforms that each have cannons on them, and the idea is that we have to find the one that has a servitor on it, a glowing servitor, and then we kill it, and then it turns into a big ball, and then we launch the big broken ball at the fallen shield, which is the thing in the middle.
I know as of right now, the community is there he is.
Hey,
The community is a little hesitant about.
Oh, I forgot to mention. Sorry, not to cut you off, but I forgot to mention this part. You have to pick up the fake engrams, and there's a crystal on each of these islands that you have to use. And
it's actually right behind you in this room.
Yeah, and once you deposit enough of them, then you're able to break the fallen shield, kind of like how we did with the ogre boss. It's the same sort of idea.
But to reiterate on the community, I know as of right now, the community is pretty divided on whether or not the next expansion is going to be worth it,
Mhm.
just because of how Bungie has been like laying people off and whatnot, and they canned a few of the um, more seasoned veterans that have been with Bungie for quite some time. So people were kind of divided on that because they're afraid that the story after the final shape is not going to be as good.
Right.
Which I'll say I think that they are right to some level, because like the main storyline that this game revolves around is like going to end, you know? But I also think that it should be a good end. It should be like positive closure.
Yeah, that's the big thing that they're touting with Lightfall, though, right? Is it's the end of the first saga of Destiny 2, or of the Destiny story as a whole, because the entire up teen years that this game's been going on and its predecessor, it's been revolving around the idea of it's the story of Light and Dark, right?
Yeah.
Yes, it's a little bit more convoluted than,
Right.
than just light dark at this point, but yeah, that's essentially the idea.
So you mentioned that Bungie laying people off, which was a really big point of contention earlier this year, or late last year rather, because they laid off a very large chunk of their community team to the dismay and very much displeasure of a large chunk of the community. What the hell happened there? Because even I know it happened, but I'm not aware of any of the details on that, like you guys might be.
So I haven't read into it very much.
Guys.
Oh.
I tried. You're gonna have to pick up the other cannon.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. So I'm not like 100% on it. I haven't read into it, but it seems like it was more along the lines of Sony's idea to axe people, just because of like low performance when it comes to just Destiny as of late. And that's to be expected. There's been a bunch of really good games that have come out. Like, it's obviously going to draw people into those games and away from Destiny. But I don't think that was necessarily the right action to take.
Right.
Can I get a little conspiratorial?
Go
as
for
we play
it.
this
Yeah.
game?
Yeah.
I kind of think that Bungie is the issue, and that they have been using the acquiring companies to scapegoat their way out of making poor decisions. Like, I think a lot of the issues that, like, they were like, oh, it was Activision's fault. That's why our DLC sucked. And now they're like, it's Sony's fault that these layoffs are happening. Like, they don't seem to want to take much responsibility for the decisions that are being made, even though they have, even if it's small, they have some level of control over what happened in their own fucking company.
It's it kind of comes down to the idea that, like, anybody can tell their boss no. You just have to weigh the consequences of telling your boss no. Kind of thing. Even if that means that you're going to be ousted and somebody else has to come in and lay off those X number of people, you have to weigh essentially whether or not you want that blood on your hands. So,
and like, I know that Sony has made some to other things, not necessarily just Bungie. And like, I don't want to say that I don't like Sony, because like, at the end of the day, it's a job, and like, they're just there to make money. Like,
they're a business.
That's it. Yes.
It's we have traveled very far from the 80s and early 90s of people making games just for fun to make games.
Yeah. And I think that it's probably a mixture of what Dalton was saying, where it's partially Bungie's fault and partially Sony's fault. Because I'm
Right.
sure
Yeah.
Sony is probably pressuring them to like, hey, you guys need to get X, Y, and Z out the door right now. And
Yeah.
they're like, yeah, no, we don't, it's not done, it's half baked. And they're like, well, ship it anyway. And we've seen that time and time again, and that usually leads to very dire consequences with games releasing, such as Cyberpunk. That game was really in rough shape. And now that it got the time that it deserved, it's a great game.
So, I have a big ask, a really big ask of you specifically, Cameron. I know, I remember the basics of the storyline from Destiny 1, but since jumping into Destiny 2 with you guys, I am lost, would say it would be an understatement. Do you have the ability to lay out the lore of Destiny for me? And for our wonderful viewers that have clearly made it this far, and if they are still listening, thank you very much.
So I'll elaborate a little bit more on it here in a second, but the nitty gritty is that from Destiny 1, we have the understanding that there is good, which is the light, and bad, which is the darkness. And you play as a character, a guardian, who is aligned with the light. So we are to assume that we are the good guys in every shape and facet of like that idea. You get deeper into Destiny 2, and that light and darkness kind of becomes a gray area.
Right.
You find out that the Traveler, which is this omnipresent thing that has been in both Destiny 1 and 2, it has basically chosen other races before humanity. And it will guide them and like help them and then desert them when they are no longer able to protect it. So we are the new protectors of the Traveler. And all of the quote-unquote enemies that we've been fighting, the Cabal, the Elixni, or the Fallen, if you want to call them that, all of a sudden they're kind of shown in a new light as not really enemies anymore. They were abandoned by the Traveler at some point. And throughout the storyline of Destiny 2, you team up with certain factions of the Cabal and of the Elixni. Now, it's not the entirety, because there are still like splinter cells of those factions that still are against the Traveler. That's like the rough of it.
Mhm.
And obviously, there's a lot more going on. You have a new character that has appeared, the Witness, and it's really complicated the storyline because it's no longer like black and white, good and evil. It's gray, like I said before, and it's like a 4D chess game going on here. Like these battles almost between good and evil have been like recycling for like years and years and years and years and years, and we're stepping into like quote unquote the end game where like this is supposed to be wrapping up, and either it will be the light comes out on top like it normally does, or the darkness comes out on top, and then everything resets and it's back to good and evil.
All right, so we got all the shields down on the thing. Now you guys just have to come to this center island.
Well, I was there for about 2 seconds.
I gotcha.
Then I'm not sure if Dalton, how much more of the story do you know? Because that was like, oh, I'm dead. That was like a really
Oh, we can get
condensed
to you. Do
version
you want
of
us?
what's
Do you want us to
going
just go ahead to the next area?
yeah.
John, if you want, I don't know if you have any loot here or not, but there should be loot here for you on this chest on me. Yeah, I would say that you probably, just from what you explained alone, that's about all I would have as far as lore goes, because I am not very well versed in the lore. I've been more so into the gameplay than anything.
Right.
But there's some things I understand if we put them in conversation, but outside of that, there's a
Right.
lot that I don't
Right.
understand.
Right. So I mean, this is
Hop in, John.
Oh, I'm coming. This is my bread and butter is doing research on stuff like this, so I can ask some fairly pointed questions that can space this out quite a bit. Do not fucking fall. God damn it. Like for example, like what is the Cabal? Like we can just go through factions and stuff like that for a little bit. And specific
The
characters
Cabal
and
are
shit.
like this like war-driven race where they will go from planet to planet, conquer that planet, and basically mine it for all of its resources, and then just leave it as like a barren husk. The Elixni were one of the first chosen by the Traveler, and they seem to be opportunistic. Opportunistic.
Oh,
Yes,
John started the encounter.
Okay.
I didn't even do anything. I just moved.
Yeah,
Which
you
is-
weren't supposed to do that.
Yeah, fair enough. I just probably crossed a trigger.
Okay, let me gather my thoughts, and then I'll get back on that. Okay, so for this, you want to take out the... where is he at? There's a Vandal in the center that has a Scorch Cannon.
Yeah, same as before.
Oh,
But we
I
want
gotcha.
to kill.
But-
We want to kill these mini bosses first before anything.
There are these two triggers on the side. When Dalton shoots them, they're going to drop a bunch of engrams from these little like cryo chamber pods on the side of the walls here.
Mm-hmm.
They'll drop the fake engrams, and then we need to grab them and then run up to the center where the crystal is, and basically deposit them as normal.
Okay, I got you.
But to get back on topic, the Elixni are like very opportunistic. Like they're scavengers, and they seem to be they'll take advantage of the situation. So like if it benefits them, they usually go for it. Consequences for whoever they take advantage of be damned. And then you have the Hive, which are remnants of what I would say the Flood from Halo.
Mm-hmm.
Like they share very common characteristics. But it seems that they've also had some sort of contact with the Traveler to some degree. They've been kind of lied to, and because of that, they're not exactly bad guys necessarily. Like they are, but there seems to be more to it. Which there's way too much lore in this game.
Oh yeah. It's one of for the listeners. We're touching on like rather extremely shallow. We're touching on overall concepts, but
Wait, hold up. Pause for just a second. John, you're gonna pick up the engrams from this island. So you're gonna stand down on this one that's on the ground. Don't touch the water though. The water will kill you instantly. Just so you know.
Yeah, I figured that out. I fell. Shocker.
Oh, I see. But yeah, so you'll stand down here when I activate. Cameron, if you want to stay on that side, and I will do the other side once I get over there.
Now, for our listeners, the when it comes to the lore, I'm asking these guys to explain extremely complex situations, because even some of the stuff that you've heard so far is rather shallow in the grand scheme of the encyclopedia of lore that this game contains. So much so that the way I've
coming
always
to the center for the crystal.
the way I've always viewed the lore in games like this or other games like World of Warcraft, stuff like that, where the lore is just too big to realistically understand, is you think of it as more of a book series, a series of stories that are loosely connected. You pick up whatever books you think might be interest to you, and over time you just start to create more of an accurate picture of what's going on. I feel like that's a fairly accurate way to describe the lore of this.
Yeah.
And in a previous conversation, John, I think you kind of chalked it up best here.
All right, go back to your spots again.
Story,
Going.
yeah, the way that the story is told, like from your character's perspective, because you are like resurrected as a corpse in between everything that's happening. You really don't have any idea what's going on. You just kind of like exist, and at whatever point in time you exist is the story that you
Right. Yeah. So the way I explained it, Cameron hit the nail on the head. Is the way I explained it is when you spawn into this game for the first time, you are a fresh guardian that is just now resurrected, just at that time resurrected from the grave. And all that your guardian would know of the entirety of the world and what's going on is only what you learn as a player from that point on. So just as you are a new player going around this extremely complex game universe, learning about fucking General Smorgasbord or whatever the hell this person's name is doing this, your guardian has just as little idea as you do, which I feel personally helps. Which I feel personally helps the new player aspect of this game, because games like these that are lore heavy can be an absolute bitch to wrap your head around.
You have the main story going on in the foreground, which is already convoluted. But if you dive down under the surface a little deeper, you can learn from doing events and getting weapons and stuff. Just reading the lore that it's like flavor text that's attached to that item or that mission or whatever. There are like at least another 50 stories going on in the background.
So one of my personal favorite characters, and I know it's a favorite of a couple of, I think both of your guys, it seems like everybody's in love with him, is Cade 6. Can you guys explain to the viewers?
He's like the poster child of this game.
Yeah, who Cade 6 is. As if anybody that's going to listen to a 2 to 3 hour long Destiny episode is not going to already know who Cade 6 is, but you never know.
Dalton, did you want to cover that, or?
I mean, you're kind of the hunter, man. I don't know too much about. Like I said, I'm very ignorant to 90% of Destiny as a whole. So I say you go for it.
Cameron is very much the grandfather of Destiny.
Yes, he is the Yoda.
Cade 6, the Yoda.
The Yoda. He's the wise
Cade
old man
6
on top of the mountain. I'm sorry, continue.
Oh, you're good, you're good. You guys get your quips in, it's fine, it's fine. So Cade 6 is the Hunter Vanguard. The Vanguard is a team made up of the Titan class, Warlock class, and the Hunter class. Cade 6 being the Hunter Vanguard. He's like a quippy, like one-liner jokester that knows when to be serious and knows when to joke around. At this point in the story, due to circumstances dealing with a now resurrected guardian,
Wait, Cameron,
who goes by the name of
I
Crow.
already did the thing. Can I have the cannon?
Oh yeah, sorry, I just picked up. Which is too much to talk about.
All right, same rotations. We're
So-
just doing the same thing.
Are you doing this side then? Okay, I'll go this side. Hold that thought, John.
No, you're good. I got you.
There's so much going on right now.
You're fine.
I'm struggling
You're
like to
fine.
even.
If we need a couple seconds of silence, it's fine. I can cut it out. So somebody just explain what happened to our viewers.
Yeah, so we were running through the final boss encounter here on Grasp of Avarice, and essentially we were combining all of the mechanics that we had learned previously between the Scorch Cannon generator mechanics, depositing the fake engrams, and being familiar with the previous boss. We were able to utilize everything together to be able to kill this captain at the end here. So, yeah, that's your dungeon there, John. Have you done another dungeon with us before?
Yeah, I've ran a couple. I've ran 2 with you, or one other one with you guys.
Yeah,
I cannot recall what it was. Did we run? We did not run Vault.
No.
No, we have not run Vault yet. Cameron, you were
Okay,
talking about
so-
Cade.
Yeah, now that my thoughts are a little more clear. Okay, so Cade 6 was the lovable knucklehead, quippy one-liner hunter Vanguard. The Vanguard is made up of, oh my god, Zavala, the Titan Vanguard, and Ikora, the Warlock Vanguard. At this point in the storyline, Cade has been killed by Prince Aldrin, who is the brother of the Queen of the Awoken. We end up getting revenge. We kill him, and the Traveler sends out a ghost to resurrect him. He has no memory of what his past life was, but he now goes by the Crow. He eventually learns of what had happened before he was resurrected as a guardian. And with the new DLC coming out, somehow Cade is being brought back to life.
Really?
Which-
I did not know that.
Is that still,
Yeah,
that still speculative? Do you know, or has it like actually been
Well,
confirmed?
So here's the thing: there is a cutscene that has been released with Ikora sitting down like at a campfire, kind of talking with someone, and then the camera like pans out a little bit, and you see Cade sitting next to her. Now, I don't really know if this is inside the veil, like the veil is like some other dimension where like an alternate reality happened. I'm not entirely for sure, but it seems like they're trying to bring Cade back in some reality, which would make sense. Like I said, he's like the poster child for this game. But he himself is an exo, which is like a robotic human, basically. Like he is a robot, but like has a human brain put in him, basically. And the reason why there's a number at the end of his name is exos have this tendency to have their brain wiped, basically, and that like resets them. And each time they are reset, they add another number to the end of their name.
So you mentioned Cade died, which means that Cade, or you mentioned that Cade is coming back to life, which means Cade died at some point, right? And while I wasn't playing
Yeah.
Destiny 2 at the time, you know me, I keep up on like the games industry headlines and stuff like that. I do distinctly remember that was a big thing when it happened. Not just for Destiny, but it was big enough to branch out across the games industry enough to have headlines all over the place. That was a pretty big moment for Destiny 2, wasn't it? And for the community, actually.
Yeah, I don't think people were too happy with the way that Cade was killed off. It seemed like it was kind of a rushed effort to like draw people in. It's like, hey, we're gonna kill off like the most important character, and that was somehow supposed to draw in more people to play this game. I guess was the move. Which I don't know if it worked or not. It seems to have definitely sparked a lot of people's curiosity because, like you were saying, this was news beyond just Destiny.
Right.
So,
Right. So, with everything that we've talked about in mind, mostly you guys on this have for sure, have talked about a lot of good and a lot of bad about the game and what Bungie's done for the game and what they've done for the community. Dalton, since you're newer, you're obviously very much in love with this game. And with Lightfall being the end of the first saga, and with that coming out fairly soon.
Talking about Final Shape, you mean?
Yeah, the final shape, I'm sorry. you clearly want to see this game continue and to be great. So where do you want to see Destiny, or where do you want to see Bungie take Destiny? And where do you think you're afraid that it'll end up?
You said, where am I
Where would
afraid
you-
it'll end up?
Yeah, are you afraid that it, since Bungie's made some decisions in the past that hasn't sat right with the community clearly? Are you
Sure.
afraid that they're going to screw things up later down the road to a point where you're going to have to give up the game, or take things in a direction that you're just not going to like? I know you're not super big on the lore side of things and more the gameplay side of things, but that's not immune to bad decision making as well. So where would you like to see Destiny end up? You know, a year from now, 2, 3, 4 years from now, since it's very clear that Bungie has no intention of letting it lie. They're going to keep going with it.
Yeah. Well, see, I don't know. It's tricky, obviously, because you're kind of gonna have to predict the future and assume certain things to some level. But I think my timeline, as far as like post final shape, first making it to final. Here, I'll break it down. Making it to final shape for me means that I try to experience as much end game content before the DLC actually releases, because I think that is the only way that I'm going to get like the fully authentic Destiny experience that a lot of other people that have played this game for a decade or almost a decade have been able to do. I have not replicated the same experience just yet because I am so new, because I am so fresh. And to some level, that sucks because I've missed out on a lot, but to some level, that's also good because I am not as drained on the same things as a lot of the community is currently. So I think my perspective right now is probably a lot different than many of like the major diehard fans of the community, because I haven't played long enough to get sick of a lot of the things that people are already complaining about. And so right now I'm just like trying to experience as much as I can before Final Shape, and then enjoy Final Shape, and then once I honestly think that them moving to quote unquote this like episodic thing, I genuinely think it's just a cop out for them to try and say that they aren't still doing the seasonal model. I largely think that not many things are going to change as far as the overall gameplay loops, the way that they introduce like whatever they call the episodic things, like each of the episodes, whether they call them something different and still have a battle pass, or whether they continue calling the season passes. I think that I can't say that I'm very worried about much, because me playing this game has felt very fresh and very new in a lot of ways that many other games don't anymore. For example, I'm a big Call of Duty guy, and playing their seasonal models and playing through a few of their battle passes, it is a grueling, painful, soulless, pathetic grind to finish out and be able to not even enjoy, just experience all of the content that happens within a season in that game. Because the amount of time that you have to put into it to reap the full rewards from each of those seasons and each of those battle passes is astronomical in comparison to Destiny. So here, I'll actually go into my season tab right now. I am a rank 235. The ranks for the battle pass stop at 100. Past that, the ranks don't mean anything. It's all just XP, right?
Right.
There's still, and I know that this is an extended season, but even if you take away the extension of this season, I still would have hit at least rank 200, so double the cap. Anytime that I played Call of Duty to try and max out a pass, one, the game didn't hold my attention very much as is, so it was hard for me to like sort of get through it and be able to max it out. And two, the amount of time that you have to put in is tenfold in comparison. So I'm not super worried about how Destiny has structured their content path thus far after experiencing each of the seasons, because to me there is very little like stress behind like FOMO, because I've been able to, and I realize I have played this game quite a bit, but I have not played this game enough to be like, yeah, the reason that I'm such a high level is because I'm no-lifing it. Like, I'm not putting a crazy amount of time. I generally played, like, actively played this game over the past few months a couple hours a day, maybe like an hour, maybe 2 hours a day, stretched across like 3 months now. And that's how far I've been able to get to the level that I've been able, or that's how I've been able to get to the level that I'm at right now. And that's without like much focus or a crazy amount of time put in. That is with me taking breaks, like multiple days worth of breaks. So I can't say that I'm like concerned for the path for the game. I was actually watching a Grenader Jake video earlier today, and he was talking about how he just hopes that if these next 4 episodes after Final Shape are going to be the end, or actually backtrack even further, if Final Shape is going to be the very last large DLC that Destiny 2 sees, I think they should be upfront and honest about that. That way they aren't just relying on people's like anticipation and them being anxious about a release that might not ever happen to maintain their audience's focus. I think that if they, being someone who was able to at least experience Lightfall on launch, I don't want to do go through Final Shape with friends, with people that I want to experience it with, and then wind up feeling fucked over and disappointed if they act like this is like the episodes are going to be a continuation of the game, when in reality they could just be a way to siphon as much money out of the tail end of the diehard community members.
Right.
Because that'll just be one last middle finger to the people that have enjoyed this game. I would say, if there's anything that I'm worried about, it's that. I think that they should be honest about their intentions. And if they plan to do more past Final Shape, great. If they don't, great. Either way, they need to be very, very clear. Because if they aren't, they will kill the rest of like what's left of the passion and the support that they have from their community, because the community is already on super thin ice, at least from what I've seen. A lot of people that have played this game for years are saying that the current state of the community very well might be at the lowest it's ever been, which sucks, being somebody that is very new to the overall experience.
You feel like you're in some ways, I've played games like that before, in a lot of ways, especially when you get invested in the community, you feel like you're walking into something that's already failing, and while you personally love it, you are afraid that if things aren't careful, you're going to see it go down the drain before you really have a chance to open it up and see what it can do.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you're walking into your like friend's parents' house and they're talking about how they're getting divorced, but your friend doesn't know. And so like they're all happy and cool about it, but it's like I'm the friend. It's like if you were to walk into my family's house, like into a conversation with my parents, and they're like, "Yeah, we're separating," and then I had no clue and just thought everything was all happy, happy go lucky, great. It's just like I just mainly hope that Final Shape can hold. This is gonna sound selfish. I hope the Final Shape can at least hold the community and those who I currently play with together long enough for me to be able to feel closure in experiencing the entirety of the game.
That's fair.
I mean, that definitely didn't sound selfish up until you said me.
No, well, no, it really is. Like, I don't want to have sunk all this time into a game that I have slowly come to love, just for it to die before I even get the chance to enjoy it.
It's selfish at its core, but the reasoning behind it is not selfish. You got to acknowledge that while it sounds selfish on the surface, it's also the same thing that thousands and thousands of other people are also feeling.
Yeah, it's what the rest of the community wants too.
Yeah,
They want the game to stay alive.
It's a weird form of collective selfishness.
Collective selfishness at that point, it's very subjective. You could argue it's not selfish at all if everyone is on the same page.
Well, I mean, if you really want to go onto a tangent that has nothing to do with this podcast, we could dip into philosophy and psychology on the basis that literally every action that anybody has ever taken on the face of the earth is innately in one form or another selfish.
Yeah. I could agree with that.
I want to be I'm gonna throw myself under the bus for a second. I want to be a firefighter and an EMT because I want to help people with nothing in return, because I volunteered and I didn't get paid for it. The selfish part of that is I want to do it. It makes you feel good, and I have to be the one to do it. That's why I want to do it. Yeah, it's Cameron. Cameron, with all that being said, I'm going to pose the same question to you, because you have been playing this game for well over a decade. Are you afraid to see it go in the wrong direction? And elaborate on that. And if, regardless of if you are or aren't, where do you want to see it end up?
So, I've been playing since Destiny 1. I've seen this game change drastically. For the better.
The Dinklebot. I just want to throw Dinklebot out there right now.
Oh yeah. Peter Dinklage used to be the voice of your ghost, your companion through this adventure, and his schedule got a little too busy, and he couldn't do that anymore. So they had to completely replace all of, and this is what blows my mind. They replaced all of the voice lines in Destiny 1 that were like originally his. But so, like I was saying, I've seen this game change drastically for the better. There were some shaky parts, but I think overall, for the better. And Bungie as a studio, they always seem to go in the right direction, especially with when they still had rights to Halo. Every Halo game seemed to be improving on what the previous one lacked.
Mm-hmm.
So if that holds true for how the studio is now, I can only imagine that Final Shape will be good. And if it's shaky, which it could be, if it's shaky, that they will make up for it with the episodics that are supposed to be coming after that. That being said, I hope that Final Shape builds upon what we already have in Destiny 2.
Mm-hmm.
I could see improvements in certain areas. I'm sure everyone is entitled to their own opinion on what they think is bad about the game as of right now. But overall, I think the gameplay will mostly stay the same. I don't see them doing anything incredibly risky at this point in time, especially knowing that the fan base is kind of collectively holding their breath on whether or not that it's going to be good.
Where do either of you guys think the story is going to end up, with them openly admitting that like it's the end of the first saga, and the only thing that they can pretty much do after that is come up with something new. And you both have mentioned this episodic content.
Honestly, I don't know. Because I don't think that there's like a... I think that Final Shape will... If I had to predict, it would just end with us defeating the Witness. Honestly, if it ended with us losing, that'd be kind of cool. That'd be interesting and kind of unexpected. So if it ended with the Witness overcoming the Traveler and us ceasing to exist as Guardians, that would be a really interesting ending. But if it just ended with us like killing the Witness, that would be like the happy ending, quote unquote. Right. But after that, I don't know, because they can't afford to introduce another big bad boss, because then you're just locking in your community to having the expectation of there being like another 4 years worth of content again.
I don't know. I'm not sure, because there's some lore in the game that I could go on for like another hour discussing that. But at the end of the day, there are bits and pieces of lore that says that our Guardian is supposed to turn completely evil. So if that is the case, I could imagine that we kill the Witness, and then because this is like I said prior to this, a 4D game of chess, we kill the Witness and therefore become the Witness, and it just repeats the entire storyline over and over and over again.
It's a Groundhog Day situation. Yeah.
Exactly. Now, whether or not that's going to happen, I have no idea, because I've never seen Bungie attempt to do something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not saying that they couldn't.
Right.
We are the Primus crew. For anyone who understands that reference,
I do not. Unfortunately,
it is a similar cycle that existed in Call of Duty Zombies lore, where they just go in a big circle, defeat big boss, go back to being protectors, defeat big boss, go back to being protectors.
So one of the big bads that we've kind of already defeated, more or less, was Callus.
Mm-hmm.
And Callus had these scions that could, quote unquote, predict the future. And there is a book, a lore book that they have written that most people dub Callus fanfic.
I don't like that.
Guardians. I know it sounds weird, but it's not. I promise. So, so these predictions basically say that our Guardian is going to become evil. We are going to kill Zavala and Ikora in these crazy battle. Well, one crazy battle. The other one's kind of lame. We're going to kill Zavala and Ikora. We're going to kill our ghost and basically become like an unstoppable force of nature. And at the end of the day, after the universe has completely burnt out and we have killed everything in it, it'll literally just be our Guardian, Callus, in the universe. And that's it. But yeah, these epic fights where we, like Hora and Zavala, I'll talk about Ikora's first because it's really badass. We end up basically challenging Zavala and Ikora, and we give them time. I can't remember exactly how many days it is. I want to say it's like 3 weeks or something like that to like ready themselves for this battle. Ikora like trains and trains and trains, and she gets stronger and stronger and stronger. And when we go fight her, she literally brings down a moon that's circling one of these planets on top of both of us, and we walk out unscathed, and she's dead. Yeah, she basically kills herself trying to kill us. And then when we come to challenge Zavala after his 3 weeks or whatever, we go down into the last city, and he spent most of his time just kind of walking around with the rest of the population, reminiscing like over like his past and stuff. Mm-hmm. And we find him sitting at a bar, eating his favorite food, chicken nuggets and root beer. And when we fight him, he basically says like, "I'm not gonna fight you. I know how this is gonna end," and we end up just killing him without like too much of an effort.
Right. He pretty much just gives in.
So exactly,
Gotcha.
exactly.
Gotcha. All right, gentlemen, I'm tapped out. I think we have a podcast.
I think this is a pretty good episode.
Dalton, do you want to do the outro?
I could try.
Yeah, I was gonna say, let's hear it, Dol.
And with everything that we've had today, we've talked about Destiny for an uncomfortably long period of time. We pulled John through a dungeon to get him Galahorn. This is the wrap on the bonus Destiny 2 episode. Thank you all so much for coming and listening to us ramble on with all of our things. Few housekeeping items. So we've got the email. If you would like to send us questions, comments, concerns, haiku, whatever you would like. We are mail at doorgaming.com. And then check out our website, doorgaming.com, where you can find our most recent episodes. You can find the about for all of us as hosts, any of the websites and platforms that you would enjoy checking out our podcast. And with that being said, we have the announcement for the next bonus episode, which will be Halo Combat Evolved in June. So thank you, dear listeners, so much for watching this episode, this bonus episode, this Destiny episode, and we will see you all in the next episode of Door to Door Gaming.
John, you were muted.
Oh.
You were still muted. You're still muted. Hopefully you haven't. There you go. Hopefully you weren't saying anything important.
No.
That made me chuckle.
I'm glad. Yeah, I'm glad you had like a live cam feed there, because otherwise I would not have known you were saying anything.
Oh my god.
God damn it. No, I wasn't saying.
Killed.
Continue. You're good. I wasn't saying nothing important.